Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a stack of documents that, quite honestly, describe the nervous system of the modern world. I mean, we usually just take for granted that when we buy a car or a laptop or even just a toaster, that thousands of little parts somehow manage to arrive at a factory, get assembled, and ship out without the whole operation collapsing into chaos.
Yeah, it is entirely the kind of thing where if it works, you never notice it. But if it fails, it is headline news. You get
Yeah.
supply chain disruption, empty shelves, factories just entirely shutting down because they are missing, one specific 10-cent screw.
Exactly. And to understand how that disaster is avoided, or at least how it is supposed to be avoided, we're looking at the end-to-end MRP process in SAP. Now, MRP stands for Material Requirements Planning. But looking at these source materials, planning feels like a really soft word for what this actually is.
It really does.
It feels more like a high-stakes juggling act performed by a computer.
That is a very fair assessment. It's basically the Goldilocks problem of manufacturing. You have a factory building something complex, like the Ashok Leyland truck we are going to discuss today. You need thousands of parts. So if you buy too many...
But to run out of cash.
Right, because it's all tied up in inventory, just sitting on a shelf gathering dust.
Yeah.
But if you buy too few, the assembly line stops, and you're burning money every single second the workers are standing around. MRP is the calculator that tries to find that perfect middle ground, the right material in the right quantity at the exact right time.
Before we get into the SAP interface, the actual buttons and levers as we call them, I want to start with the analogy provided in the source material. It's the wooden sandal company. It sounds quaint, but I mean, does it actually hold up when we talk about real heavy industry?
It's deceptive, but yes, the fundamental logic, identical. In the example, you have a factory making wooden sandals. The recipe is super simple. 1 wooden sole, 2 leather straps, and let's say 10 nails.
Okay, simple enough.
So if you get a customer order for 1,000 sandals, your brain does the math instantly. You need 1,000 soles, 2,000 straps, and 10,000 nails. You check the shelf. If you only have 200 soles, you know you are 800 short, so you go buy 800.
Right. But that is back of the napkin math. I really don't need a multi-million-dollar software system for that.
True. But now, swap the sandal for an Ashok Leyland truck. The recipe, what we formerly call the bill of materials, isn't 3 items. It is thousands. And here is the real kicker. Lead time.
The time it takes for the stuff to actually show up from the vendor.
Exactly. The engine might take 3 months to arrive from a supplier in Germany. The tires might take 2 weeks locally. The bolts might arrive tomorrow. You can't just order everything on Monday and hope for the best.
Because then the bolts sit there for 3 months waiting for the engine.
Right. You have to stagger the orders so that the engine, the tires, and the bolts all land at the receiving dock exactly when the assembly line needs them. That is a calculation you just cannot do on a napkin.
That sets the stage perfectly. We are talking about a system that manages time just as much as it manages quantity. So let's dive into the machine itself. We are going to walk through the configuration and execution of this process using the Ashok Leyland truck example from the documents. But as you always remind us with these systems, software is dumb. It only knows what we tell it.
We call that master data. It's the ingredients before you start cooking. If the master data is wrong, the entire plan is wrong.
So let's look at the must-haves from the source. The very first one is the material code itself, the ID card, basically. We have 2 main players here in the scenario, material 435 and material 424.
Right. Material 435 is our finished good of low, the truck itself. In SAP, we classify this as a FERT type material, F-E-R-T, that tells the system, hey, we manufacture this and we sell it.
And material 424.
That is a raw material, or ROH. ROH. The system treats this entirely differently. It knows we don't sell this, we buy this to make other things. We create these codes using a transaction code, or T-code, called MM01. But the real magic happens in a specific tab called MRP1.
Yeah, I saw that in the screenshots in the source. There is a field called MRP type. For the truck and its expensive raw materials, this was set to PD. What does that actually tell the brain of the system to do?
PD stands for Plan on Demand. This is crucial for high-value items. It tells the system, do not buy this unless you have a specific reason.
A reason being a customer order.
A customer order, or a formal forecast, yeah. Basically, the system acts lazy. It sits there and does absolutely nothing until demand appears. You want this for expensive items because you do not want to accidentally order 1,000 truck engines just because the warehouse bin looks empty. You only want them if you are actually going to build trucks.
Okay, so we have the ID cards. Next, we need to link them. The system needs to know that the raw material 424 physically goes inside the truck 435.
That is the bill of materials, or BM. T-code CS001. It is the recipe. To make 1 unit of material 435, you require 1 unit of material 424.
It sounds simple, but I imagine this is where things get really messy in the real world.
Oh, absolutely. If your engineering team changes the design and forgets to update the BAMN and SAP, you are in massive trouble. Imagine they switch from a 10 mm bolt to a 12 mm bolt, but don't tell the system.
The system keeps buying the old one.
Yep, MRP will keep ordering the 10 mm bolts. You end up with a warehouse full of completely useless parts and a production line screaming because they need the 12 mm ones. The BAM is the single source of truth for the product structure.
Then we have the routing, which is created via T-code CA01. If the BAM is the what, this seems to be the how.
And, more importantly for MRP, the when. The routing defines the exact sequence of operations: weld, paint, assemble, and the specific time each step takes.
But why does an inventory system care about how long it takes to paint the truck?
Because of that backward scheduling we mentioned earlier. If you need the truck finished on Friday, and the routing says painting takes 2 days and assembly takes 1 day, the system calculates backward. It knows it absolutely must start on Tuesday, which means the raw materials must be available on Tuesday morning. Without the routing, the system literally doesn't know when to bring the materials in.
That makes total sense. Now there's one last piece of setup that sounded a bit like a sci-fi concept to me. The planning file entry using T-code MD20. The notes describe it acting like a sentinel.
It is an efficiency tool, really. Think about a massive plant with 100,000 different part numbers. Running the heavy math on all of them takes a lot of server computing power. You don't want to recalculate everything every 5 minutes if nothing changed.
So the system needs a way to know what specifically changed.
Exactly. The planning file entry is essentially a digital flag. If a warehouse worker issues some stock or a sales guy enters a new order, the system raises a little flag on that specific material number. It says, hey, something changed here. So when you run the MRP engine, it scans for those flags and only recalculates the materials that actually need it. It ignores the rest.
Okay, so the stage is fully set. We have our truck, our raw material, the recipe, the timeline, and the sentinels are watching. Now, let's run scenario A. The source material calls this classic MRP, or the push scenario.
Yes, this is how most complex manufacturing works. It usually starts with a forecast.
In the documentation, they use T-code MD61 to create PIRs, Planned Independent Requirements.
Which is just fancy SAP speak for what we plan to sell.
Right. The example shows a user manually entering, I need 1,000 units of material 435, the truck, for September 2025. Now, just to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't a firm order from a customer yet, right?
Not necessarily, no. This is the company taking a position. They are saying, based on our market analysis, we are going to build 1,000 trucks. They are actively committing resources to this plan.
So we have the demand, but right now, it is just a wish list. The system hasn't actually done anything about it yet.
Correct. The demand just sits there waiting. To turn it into action, we have to press the magic button, T-code MD02, the single item MRP run.
This is the exact moment the invisible brain actually wakes up. I want to slow down here because the source material kind of glosses over it with just a screenshot of a success message. What is the actual logic happening inside that black box when you hit run?
It is executing the net requirements calculation. It goes step by step. First, it looks at the truck. It sees the demand for 1,000. It checks the current inventory. Let's say we have 0 trucks sitting in the parking lot.
1,000 minus 0 equals a shortage of 1,000.
Right. So the system creates a planned order to build 1,000 trucks. But it doesn't stop there. This is where the beam comes in. It explodes the
It explodes it.
Yeah, that is the standard industry term. It looks inside the truck. It sees that to make those trucks, it needs the raw material 424. It calculates the dependent demand. I need 1,000 trucks, so I need 1,000 units of material 424.
And then it checks the stock for the raw material?
Exactly. It repeats the exact same math. I need 1,000 raw materials. I have 0 in the warehouse. Shortage is 1,000. So for the raw material, it creates a purchase requisition.
I see. So it creates a make proposal for the truck itself and a buy proposal for the parts.
Precisely. And all of this happens in milliseconds. It chains the logic all the way down to the smallest screw in the BOM.
The source material shows us the result of this in T-code MD04, the stock requirements list. This seems to be the dashboard where planners spend their entire lives.
MD04 is absolutely the heartbeat of the supply chain. It's a dynamic view. On one single screen, you see the past, meaning what you have in stock, the future, which is what you need to build, and the solution, which are the requisitions the system just automatically created.
But And this seems like a really big distinction. A requisition isn't a purchase order. We haven't actually spent any money yet.
No, not yet. A purchase requisition is just an internal note. It is the system saying, hey, I calculated that we need this. Permission to buy. It requires a human or an automated approval rule to actually execute it.
Which brings us to the execution phase, turning the digital idea into physical reality. The source walks through the purchase order creation next.
This is usually done by a purchasing agent. They see the requisition in SSP. They might combine it with other orders to get a bulk discount, stuff like that. They select the vendor supplier 2031 in our specific example, and they convert the requisition into a purchase order, or PO.
And once that PO is created and sent out, it is a binding legal contract.
Yes. The vendor is now legally obligated to deliver, and we are legally obligated to pay for it.
Fast forward a bit in our scenario. The vendor ships the goods, the truck arrives at the factory gate. We have to tell SAP the stuff is physically here. This is the goods receipt note, or GRN, using T-code MIGO.
This step is deceptively simple. A warehouse clerk basically checks the box, enters storage location A110, and clicks Post. But financially speaking, this is the most critical mouse click in the entire end-to-end process.
The source specifically mentions evaluation here. In the example, the goods are worth over $7 million. $7,210,000 to be exact.
Think about the accounting of that. Before that click, the company had cash. After that click, the system credits the cost of goods sold or payable account and debits the inventory account. That one single click puts $7 million of physical assets onto the company balance sheet.
That is an immense amount of responsibility for the person working at the receiving dock.
It really is. If they forget to do it, the system thinks you have zero stock. The production planner will be yelling because they can't start the assembly line. The finance director will be yelling because the monthly report is missing $7 million in assets. It all hinges on that one data entry.
So that is scenario A, the classic push. We want a truck, so we push the demand down and order parts. It flows entirely top-down. But the source material throws a curveball at us with scenario B.
The pull scenario.
Right, because frankly, you do not want to do that complex explosion math for every single washer and bolt, do you?
No, you'd go crazy. We call those C-class items. Low value, high volume. You don't try to forecast exactly how many milliliters of glue you're going to use in September. You just want to make sure the glue bucket is never completely empty.
This brings in reorder point planning. We have a new material introduced in the notes for this. Material 448, raw material for Pulsar.
And if you look closely at the master data for material 448, the MRP type is changed. It's not PD anymore. It is VB.
BB. What does that actually change in the brain of the system?
It tells the system to completely ignore the forecast. It doesn't care about the truck production plan at all. It only cares about one specific number: current stock.
The source sets a specific rule here. The reorder point is set to 50.
Think of this exactly like the fuel light in your car. You don't plan your gas station stops based on a complex map of where you're driving next week. You just plan based on the gauge right in front of you. When the needle hits the line, when the light turns on, you fill up.
So let's walk through the simulation provided in the text. We start with 100 units of material, 448 in stock.
We are above the 50 mark. The system is happy. It just sleeps.
Then consumption happens. A worker on the shop floor takes a box of parts. They perform a goods issue to cost center using movement type 201.
Meaning they are taking the material out of the warehouse to actually use it in production.
The example says they take 70 units. So, quick math. 100 minus 70 leaves us with exactly 30.
And 30 is less than 50.
Panic.
Controlled panic. The next time the system checks, it sees that we have breached the safety level. It immediately generates a purchase requisition.
Now, here is a nuance I found really fascinating. In the truck scenario, if we needed exactly 1,000 engines, we ordered 1,000 engines. But here, the source says the system created a PR for 20 units. Why 20? Why not just buy 70 to fill it right back up to 100?
That comes down to the lot size setting in the master data. For cheap items, you very often have a fixed lot size. Maybe the vendor only sells them in sealed boxes of 20. Or maybe 20 is just the most economic quantity to put on a pallet and ship.
So the system isn't trying to match the exact demand perfectly like it did with the truck engine?
No, not at all. It is just trying to follow the purchasing rules to get you back up to a safe level. It is a replenishment logic, not a planning logic.
And notice, there was no sales order involved here, no forecast. The trigger was purely the physical inventory level dropping below a number.
That is the beauty of it. It's fully automated. You don't need a highly paid planner to stare at the bolt bin all day. The system watches it for you.
It really highlights that MRP is not a blunt instrument. You treat the expensive engine very differently from the cheap bolt.
That is the ultimate sign of a mature supply chain. If you use PD, the forecast planning, for bolts, you are completely wasting your planner's time analyzing $1 items. If you use VB, the reorder point, for truck engines, you are going to go bankrupt holding millions in expensive stock just to keep the bin full. You have to match the strategy to the material.
We have covered the setup, the push of the truck, the pull of the bolts, and the execution of buying and receiving. It seems incredibly efficient.
It is. It removes all the latency. In the old days, you'd have to wait for a guy with a clipboard to literally walk the warehouse, realize the bin was empty, walk back to his desk, and write out a paper form. By the time that form got to purchasing, the line might have already stopped.
But with SAP, the moment that goods issue is posted, boom, the requisition is visible in MDO4.
Instant visibility across the globe.
However, and I want to close on a thought that just kept nagging me as I read through all this source material.
Yeah.
We are painting a picture of a perfect machine. The math is undeniable. 1,000 minus 200 is always 800.
The math is never wrong.
But the reality might be.
That is the final provocative truth of MRP, really. The system is a digital twin of the factory, but it is entirely blind. It has no eyes.
It relies completely on what we type into it.
Completely. Think about lead times. We told the system that the raw material takes 7 days to arrive. We literally typed a 7 into the material master. The system plans everything around that specific number. But what if there is a strike at the port? What if the delivery truck breaks down? The real lead time suddenly becomes 14 days.
The system doesn't know that.
No. It still absolutely thinks the parts are coming in 7 days. So it schedules production for day 8. And when day 8 comes, the workers are standing there with wrenches in their hands and no parts. The plan failed because the data just didn't match reality.
Or inventory accuracy. That actually seems like the biggest risk of all.
It is the ultimate garbage in, garbage out principle. Imagine a forklift driver drops a pallet of material 448. The parts scatter everywhere. He sweeps them up and just throws them in the dumpster because he doesn't want to get in trouble.
So he doesn't do a goods issue in the software.
Nope. So physically, the parts are gone, but digitally. The system thinks you still have 100 units sitting there perfectly fine. It thinks you are safe. It won't trigger the reorder point.
So you just run out.
You run out. The assembly line grinds to a halt. And usually, management yells at the supply chain planner saying, why didn't the system order more? But the system was working perfectly. It was acting rationally on the information it had.
It feels like the role of the human has shifted. We aren't calculating the shortage anymore. The computer does that instantly. We are basically the guardians of the truth.
That is a great way to put it. The supply chain professional's job today is data discipline. You have to ensure the digital twin matches the physical reality perfectly. If those two things drift apart, the invisible brain starts making hallucinations instead of plans.
A sobering thought for anyone who thinks automation just magically solves everything. It solves the math, sure, but not the discipline. Well, we have gone all the way from the wooden sandal to a $7 million ledger entry. Hopefully, next time you see a massive truck on the highway, you have a little more appreciation for the invisible web of data that made sure the wheels actually arrived on the exact same day as the chassis.
It really is a marvel of modern logistics when you step back and think about it.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.